We agreed to go halves on shrimp farming. But my uncle skimmed my share and told me to get out of the pond if I couldn't cut it. A month later, a top-tier restaurant. He came in a fancy car to steal my shrimp. This time, he was the one begging and crying. My uncle and I farmed shrimp together. We netted $830,000 in a season. But he only gave me $20,000. I looked at the 2 stacks of cash on the table. I didn't touch them. We had agreed. I provide the technique. You provide the pond and capital, 50-50. My uncle laughed. He turned to the 2 helpers behind him.
Hear that? He dares talk about 50-50.
The crew cut guy spat on the ground.
Uncle Daewang from Qinghe is generous to give you 20,000. Consider yourself lucky.
I clenched my fists. Didn't argue with them. It's been a year since my dad's surgery. He's alive. But the imported anti-rejection drugs can't stop. A month. The meds alone cost nearly $3,000. Our savings were long gone. Uncle... He took a piece of paper from his pocket and slammed it on the table.
3 batches of shrimp fry died. Electricity bills were over 20,000 $2. Feed costs on credit. I didn't deduct your share. I still gave you 20,000. What boss is so generous to his workers?
I stared at him. I sourced the shrimp fry. I adjusted the water. Feeding and disease prevention were all me. Last year, your entire pond was wiped out. Who fixed the water quality for you? My uncle's face darkened.
Do you think this pond can't survive without you?
I stayed silent. He leaned back.
From today, you don't need to come to the pond anymore. The pond is mine. The clients are mine. The truck is mine too.
He stood up and tossed the $20,000 in front of me.
If you want more, get lost.
Money scattered on the floor. I squatted down and picked them up one by one. The crew cut guy laughed.
He's actually picking it up.
I ignored him. I stood up with the money and looked at my uncle. This is the last time I call you uncle. Someone coughed at the door. Village Party Secretary Zhao Changhe. I don't know how long he had been standing there. He had his hands behind his back. His face showed no emotion, but his eyes were fixed on my uncle. Secretary Zhao was different from the others. He had been secretary for 20 years. He truly helped anyone in need. The year my dad had surgery, he helped with medical insurance, going to the county several times. He spoke, not loud.
Daewang, I heard what happened between you and your nephew. This pond is collective village land. The contract was signed, so dividends are calculated accordingly. As an elder, you shouldn't act this way.
Uncle's face twitched.
Secretary Zhao, this is our family's private matter.
Secretary Zhao didn't respond to him. He turned to look at me.
Kingy, how much more do you need for your dad's medicine?
I said I still needed over 30,000. He nodded. Then he turned back to look at Uncle.
Daewang, Chingy has worked for you for 3 years, and the shrimp pond technique is all his. Contractual dividends are the rule. If this goes to the village committee, you'll be the one embarrassed.
Uncle's face changed several times. He didn't say anything more. He took out another stack of money from his pocket and slammed it on the table without counting.
I'll add another 10,000 for you. Kingy, don't blame your uncle for not taking care of you.
He stood up and walked out. He paused as he passed Secretary Zhao, but didn't stop. Secretary Zhao watched his back. He shook his head.
Chingy, the village is applying for a rural revitalization demonstration project. There are policy supports for silane alkali land management. If you want to do it yourself, come to me.
After saying that, he left. The room fell quiet. I finished picking up the money. 20,000 plus the 10 grand on the table. 30,000. I walked out of the dirt road by the shrimp pond. It was getting dark. My mom called. She asked me,
Chinge, did you get the money from your uncle?
I held the 30,000. I got it, Mom. The medicine money is enough. I'll figure out the rest. There was a silence on the other end of the line. She asked me again.
Did your uncle make things hard for you? Someone from the village called me, saying you two had a fight.
I said, Mom, don't worry about it. Her voice was very low.
Your dad is recovering well. He just keeps talking about you, saying he's a burden to you.
I gripped my phone. Mom, tell him not to overthink. I'll handle the money. You take care of Dad. I went home and pushed open Dad's room door. Seeing me come in, he propped himself up on the bed. I pressed on his shoulder. Dad, don't move. He asked me.
At your uncle's place. How much did he give you?
I touched my nose. I got what I deserved. My dad looked at me for 2 seconds.
You've never been able to lie since you were a child.
I didn't say anything. I put the 30,000 on his nightstand. Dad, don't stop the medicine. Use it without worry. My dad turned his face away.
It's Dad who's burdened you.
I stood up and left the room. I rubbed my face hard. It's not him burdening me. It's that I'm not capable. I went into the room. I moved all the old books on the table, the old fishing gear, and pulled out the wooden box left by Grandpa. The paint had worn off. The brass lock was rusted. I had never seriously looked through it before. That night, I opened it. In the box was a stack of notebooks. The covers were yellowed and the edges frayed. I casually opened one. The first page was in Grandpa's handwriting. Written with a fountain pen, the strokes had bled. Saline alkali land is not wasteland. If raised well, it's a paradise for shrimp. I turned to the next page. Water level, salinity, algae phase, sediment treatment, bacterial ratio. Grandpa filled over 10 pages. I flipped to the last page. There was only one line of words. Shrimp raised in saline alkali water. The sweetness is unmatched by ordinary ponds. But remember, the bottom sediment returning alkali is the top killer. If you can't suppress it, the whole pond will die. I closed the notebook, and my hands were shaking. It wasn't fear. It was someone showing me a way. The next morning, I went to find Zhao Dazhuang. He was in the yard, repairing the old water pump, covered in engine oil. When he saw me, he said,
Xinghe, I heard Zhou Dewang kicked you out. He went to Wangmazi yesterday, at the county aquatic market, and gossiped everywhere, saying your skills are poor and your character is flawed. Many wholesalers, afraid of offending Zhou Dewang, the old-timer, are holding off and dare not accept your shrimp.
I said I left on my own. He scratched his head, asked me what I planned to do, whether I wanted to go to the city to work with him. I shook my head. No, I want to keep farming shrimp. He froze, staring at me blankly.
Xu Dewang made a statement at the county aquatic market. Now those wholesalers dare not get involved with you. You don't even have a pond. Where to raise them?
I said there is. Secretary Zhao said, there is policy support for saline alkali land treatment, specifically that piece of white alkaline land at the end of the village. I took Zhao Dazhuang to the end of the village. That land is farthest from the village, a vast white expanse with alkaline frost on the ground. The water in the ditch is salty and bitter, and the weeds are short and stunted. Some places grow nothing at all. Zhao Dazhuang stood at the edge of the field, stunned.
This place doesn't even grow grass. And you tell me to farm shrimp?
I said it's right here. He asked me,
Did Zhou Dewang make you lose your mind?
I squatted down and grabbed a handful of soil. It felt dry and rough in my hand. It smells faintly of alkali up close, exactly as described in Grandpa's notebook. What others see as wasteland, I see it as a way forward. I stand up and wipe the soil off my hands. Zhao Dazhuang opened his mouth as if to speak.
Are you crazy?
In the afternoon, I went to the village head. When he heard that I wanted to contract that saline alkali land, he almost knocked over his teacup.
Qinghe land has been barren for over 10 years. Nothing grows on it. You want to farm shrimp? Let me find you another pond.
I said, this very plot. How much per mu? He looked at me for a long time and shook his head.
If you really want to contract it, 80 wen per mu per year. But I'll be honest with you. Whatever you do with this land, you'll lose money.
I signed the contract on the spot, contracting 20 mu. After signing, the village head stared at me for a long time.
Back in the day, your grandpa also worked this land. No one believed him. Later, he left. No one ever mentioned the saline alkali land again. Oh, by the way, Secretary Zhao came to the village committee 2 days ago and specifically mentioned you. He said if you came to contract the saline alkali land, to set it aside for you. He also said that saline alkali aquaculture aligns with the rural revitalization industry support policy, and the village committee can help you apply for technical subsidies.
I said, please thank Secretary Zhao for me. News spread fast. On the afternoon of the third day, I was digging a pond on the land when a black car pulled over by the road. The car door opens and my uncle gets out. He brought 4 or 5 people, all from the county's aquatic market. One with a pockmarked face I know, Pockmarked Wang. A local bully in the aquatic market, and 2 wholesalers, an ice factory owner. My uncle stood on the ridge with his hands behind his back. He slowly looked around.
Not bad, Qinghe. Ambitious. This field is big enough.
The group behind him all laughed. Pockmarked Wang lit a cigarette. He pointed at me with the cigarette.
Dewang, this is the nephew you talked about, raising shrimp in saline alkali land. Is he out of his mind?
My uncle walked up to me. His voice was moderate, loud enough for everyone to hear.
You think he's out of his mind? He's desperate. No one in the county dares to buy his shrimp.
He can only gamble here in this crappy place. He paused and raised his voice. If you can raise shrimp in this crappy place, I, Zhou Dewang, will kneel and call you master. Laughter erupted behind me, and I didn't argue. I took out the notebook from my pocket, turned to the marked page. Read to Zhao Dazhuang. The water doesn't need to be too deep. Up to my calf is enough. Salinity should be lighter than seawater. You can taste salt when you lick it. The watercolor should be clear, like the color of tea, steeped a second time. The pond bottom mud shouldn't burn your hand. Not astringent. Then it's ready. Zhao Dazhuang was standing nearby, listening dumbfounded. The smile on Uncle's face turned sour. He turned and walked away, playing tricks. Wangmazi flicked his cigarette butt into the pond I just dug. Young man, when your shrimp all die, come find me. I'll collect the dead shrimp to feed the chickens. 50 cents a caddy. A group of people got into the car laughing, driving away in a cloud of dust. Zhao Dazhuang gripped the shovel handle, veins bulging on the back of his hand. I really wanted to slap him in the face with the shovel. I said, "If you hit him, you'll go to jail." What's worse, I jumped into the pond and continued digging. Come on, let's keep at it for the next half month. I spent all my last savings, buying shrimp fry, renting water pumps, and digging ponds. Zhao Dazhuang sold that broken tricycle and stuffed the money into my hand. I said I'd remember. He waved his hand and said, "Remember my ass. If you really want to remember, treat me to a nice meal when the shrimp are ready." Village Secretary Zhao also came twice. On the first trip, he brought 2 bags of rice and a jug of oil, saying it was a gift from the village committee. On the second trip, he brought an agritech station technician who crouched by the pond and talked with me for a long time. The technician, surnamed Li, wore glasses and spoke slowly and methodically. He looked at my water quality records, then tasted the pond water and nodded. Saline alkali, land aquaculture, has special technical guidance from the province. I'll take these data back first. If you need anything, feel free to find me. Village Secretary Zhao said one sentence before leaving. Keep it up, Qinghe. If this pond succeeds, it'll be a model for our village's saline land treatment. My mom called to ask what I was doing. I said I was raising shrimp. She was silent for a long time, then said, "Take care of yourself," and hung up. I know the villagers have already told her about the saline land. On the evening the shrimp were released, the water was calm. Zhao Dazhuang crouched on the bank and lit a cigarette. "Do you think shrimp can really grow in this saline land?" I said Grandpa wouldn't lie to me. He took a drag and said, "If it really works, we'll be back on our feet. What if it doesn't work?" I turned on the aerator switch. "Then we'll try again." At night, I slept in the shack by the pond and was woken by Zhao Dazhuang in the middle of the night. His face was pale, and the flashlight on his face made it look like paper. "Qinghe, it's bad. All the shrimp are belly up." I rushed out barefoot from the shed. Under the moonlight, the water surface was a layer of dead white. Countless shrimp larvae were floating belly up. On the water surface, the aerator was still running, the splashes mixing with dead larvae, like a pot of white congee. On the pond ridge, a few early rising villagers had gathered. Some shook their heads, some took out phones to film. "I told you this saline land can't grow shrimp." I said he was crazy. He gave up 20,000 just to burn money here. Someone started a live stream directly. Come, let me show you the big news of our village. The first pond for shrimp farming in saline alkali soil. All died overnight. I knelt in the mud, grabbed a handful of dead shrimp. Shrimp gills black, water alkalinity abnormal. Grabbed another handful. I opened the gills and looked under the flashlight. The gill filaments were black, not the black of gill rot, but charred from alkali burn. The water's pH must have exceeded 9.5. Zhao Dazhuang squatted beside me. His voice was trembling. "Can it be saved?" I said it can be saved. I stood up and threw the dead shrimp into the mud. "But we have to start over." Someone behind me picked up the conversation. "Qinghe, stop messing around. Your uncle has spoken, saying if you go back to work for him, he'll give you 3,000 a month." I turned around. The one speaking was old son who runs the village shop. "Please pass him a message. Tell him to wait until dawn." The news spread through the village like wildfire. I squatted on the pond ridge, flipping through Grandpa's notes. Laughter rang out behind me. "Shukine, I heard your shrimp all died overnight." I didn't turn around. I knew it was Flat Top from his voice. Behind him were 3 or 4 villagers. Some were eating breakfast while watching. The village chief also came and stood outside the crowd. A complicated expression on his face, Flat Top stood with hands on hips, standing behind me and teasing. "I told you, shrimp farming in saline alkali soil. Pigs can climb trees. You turned down 20,000, insisted on showing off here. Now look, you've lost everything, even your underwear." Uncle Duang said, "If you go back and beg him now, he'll still acknowledge you as his nephew." I closed the notebook and stood up and walked right past him. He was stunned for half a second. "What the hell is your attitude? Are you deaf? I'm talking to you." Zhao Dazhuang rushed up and pushed him in the chest. "Try saying that again. I've been putting up with you for a long time." The crew cut guy staggered from the push, then steadied himself and was about to charge. "You dare to hit me?" I called out to stop him. "Dazhuang, come here." Zhao Dazhuang pointed at the crew cut guy's nose. "You just wait." He turned and followed me toward the pond. Behind us, the crew cut guy was still shouting, "What are you pretending for? The shrimp are all dead and you're still pretending." Uncle Duang said, "No matter how you struggle, you won't turn the tide." I walked to the water inlet. Zhao Dazhuang was so angry his hands were trembling. "That bastard is Zhou Duang, sent here to watch the show." "Bro, why did you stop me?" I said, "Let him watch." I crouched down, dipped my finger in the water, and put it in my mouth to taste it. It was bitter and astringent. Compared to when the water first came in yesterday, it was much more bitter. The problem is right here. The alkali from the bottom of the pond has risen, and it has ruined the water. Once the shrimp fry's gills are burned by the alkaline water, they'll all die within 3 hours. He asked, what do we do then? I said we have to suppress the bottom mud. In Grandpa's notebook, there is a page, which I read all last night, about using a straw humus layer to cover the bottom mud, and then adjusting the water with biological bacteria and lime. The principle is not complicated, but the timing is extremely hard to master. Too much straw spoils the water. Too little can't suppress the alkali. Too much lime burns the seedlings. Too little can't lower the pH. I handed the notes to Zhao Dazhuang to read. After reading, he only said, I can't really read this handwriting. Bro, just tell me how to do it. I'll go buy the materials, but we're out of money. I took out the motorcycle keys. Zhao Dazhuang grabbed my hand. That was bought by your dad for you. I said, sell it. That motorcycle was bought by my dad before he fell ill. Songshan 150 red, rode for 3 years, maintained like new. I pushed it to the town's used car dealership. The boss inspected the bike for a long time. Held up 3 fingers. 3,000, I nodded. The boss walked around the bike once. Young man, your dad has ridden this bike for years, right? You're really willing to part with it. I didn't answer. He sighed, counted the money and gave it to me. After getting the money, I bought 10 bags of biobacteria, 200 gin of lime, 3 cartloads of bran and straw. When I hired a farm truck to haul them back to the pond, it was already dark. Passing the village entrance, old son poked his head out from the small shop, poked his head out and glanced, then pulled back in. Zhao Dazhuang sat on the pond ridge waiting for me. The headlights swept over and he stood up, saw the truck full of materials. You really sold the motorcycle, huh? He didn't speak. Took out a cigarette from his pocket and lit it. The ember flickered in the darkness. Over the next 3 days, I stayed in the pond with Zhao Dazhuang. We drained the water and cleared out dead seedlings. We spread rice straw layer by layer, stepped on it, spread bran and lime, and turned the bottom mud. We let it dry in the sun for 2 days, until cracks appeared on the pond bottom. Then we added water and sprayed biological bacteria. On the evening of the 3rd day, water from the inlet flowed into the pond. I crouched beside it, staring at the water surface. The water color slowly changed from dead white to light yellow, and then from light yellow to light tea color. Zhao Dazhuang crouched next to me, dipped his finger in the water, and put it in his mouth. It's not bitter anymore. We're good, he said. I said, not yet. We need to let the water stabilize for 2 more days. During those 2 days, I didn't get a full night's sleep. I checked the pH every 4 hours. At 3 a.m., I got up and checked the water color with a flashlight. Zhao Dazhuang said I had lost weight. 2 days later, I tested again. The water didn't burn or feel astringent. There was no fishy smell of rotten fish or shrimp. You could see an arm's depth into the water. Every item was within the optimal range, marked in Grandpa's notes. Zhao Dazhuang asked me how I felt. I said we could release the seedlings. The second batch of shrimp seedlings was released in the evening. I didn't scatter them directly. First, I set up a small net cage by the pond, soaked the seedling bags in pond water for 20 minutes, and opened them after the temperature difference was consistent. After the seedlings entered the cage, I observed for 2 more hours. They were feeding normally and swimming vigorously. Just released them into the pond. Zhao Dazhuang watched the whole process. He said I wasn't this careful last time. I said I didn't know about saline alkali land last time. Now I understand, Grandpa's notebook says, when releasing seedlings in saline alkali soil, a temperature difference over 2 degrees causes immediate stress. I missed that last time. Technician Lee came again the next day. He brought a portable water quality tester. He tested at the pond for half an hour. After testing, he took off his glasses and wiped them. He glanced at me. Your data is better than I expected. The Ecological Farming Group of the Provincial Academy of Agricultural Sciences is looking for demonstration households. I can recommend your pond. If approved, there is a technical subsidy, 20,000 a year. Zhao Dazhuang's eyes widened. Free money? Technician Lee smiled. It's not free. Demonstration households must keep complete farming logs. The data is shared across the province. Are you willing? I said yes. A week after the shrimp fry were released, they started feeding steadily. Half a month later, they grew to 4 centimeters. A month later, Zhao Dazhuang rowed out and cast a net to test the shrimp. When he pulled up the net, he was silent. I thought something had gone wrong again. I put down the wrench and walked over. He was squatting by the net, completely stunned. Xinghe, these shrimp are so big. In the net, the white shrimp glowed under the sunset. Their shells so thin you could see the vein. Their body length is a full circle larger than ordinary pond shrimp of the same age. I picked one up and pinched its shell. Firm and plump. Tight belly muscles. 20 more days and they're ready. Word spread again. This time it's no joke. The village head came. He crouched by the pond. Before leaving, he said, "If your grandfather were still alive, he'd be so happy he'd walk halfway and come back. Qinghe, your uncle's side recently, has been getting close to Wang Mazi. Be careful. Uncle didn't come, but I know he will." 20 days later, the first batch of white shrimp came out. The biggest are 16 to a jin. The small ones no more than 22. Thin shell, firm meat, very lively. Can survive in oxygen bags to the capital. Regular white shrimp sells for 30 a jin. Zhao Dazhuang said mine can go for 50, but the problem is, we can't get into the county seafood market. I said, go to the capital. I brought 100 jin of live shrimp in Zhao Dazhuang's beat-up van for 4 hours. The car broke down twice on the way. Zhao Dazhuang cursed the whole way. When we arrived at the capital, we didn't even know where the gate of Yuehai Tower was. At the entrance of Yuehai Tower, a security guard stopped me. "What's your business?" I said. "I'm looking for your purchasing manager." "Do you have an appointment?" I said no. The guard kept waving his hand. "No appointment, no entry. Go on, don't block the entrance." I set the foam box on the ground, opened the lid. "How about you check the quality of my shrimp first?" He lowered his head to look, frozen for a moment, said, "Wait for me," then ran in quickly. I waited for 40 minutes. A woman came out, about 30, white shirt, glasses, holding a pen. The look in her eyes was like she was reviewing a report. "My surname is Shen Wanking, the purchasing manager of Yuehai Restaurant. What shrimp do you have?" I scooped out a shrimp and placed it in her hand. It was alive, translucent all over. She looked at it for 2 seconds, then without a word, turned and said, "Follow me." I entered the kitchen. She had the chef boil them on the spot. The shrimp were dropped into boiling water for 15 seconds and then taken out. The shells turned from translucent white to orange-red. The bodies curled into a standard 90-degree crescent. Shen Wanking didn't touch the chopsticks. She directly picked one up with her fingers, peeled it, and took a bite. Her expression changed. My heart sank. Something was wrong. She swallowed, looked at me, and said, "This shrimp is unnaturally sweet. It's not from medicine. It's a natural sweetness from the water quality. How many do you have? I want them all." Zhao Dazhuang was beside us, almost falling to the ground. "Sister, I really want them all." Shen Wanking asked him what was wrong. He, a big man, had red eyes. "Sister, we almost got killed by these shrimp." No one in the village believed us. His uncle even blocked the road with people. And the ice factory wouldn't sell us ice. Shen Wanking frowned. "Uncle, I didn't say anything." Zhao Dazhuang also fell silent. Shen Wanking directly named a price. 98 per jin. He'll take the whole truck, and Zhao Dazhuang started calculating. 800 jin per mu. 20 mu makes 16,000 jin. 98 yuan per jin. His hands trembled so much he couldn't press the calculator. "Bro, that's over 1.5 million. Just as we were about to sign the contract, the kitchen door was pushed open. "Miss Shen, you can't take his shrimp." Uncle stood at the door. Behind him were 2 market regulators in uniform. Wang Mazi stood at the back, a cigarette dangling from his mouth. With a look of someone watching a show, he pointed at me and said to Shen Wanking, "This guy is my nephew. His batch of shrimp were raised in saline alkali wastewater and also use banned growth accelerants. Don't be fooled by him, bosses." The law enforcement officers stepped forward. "Someone reported that your shrimp have excessive drug residues. Please cooperate with the on-site rapid test." Zhao Dazhuang got anxious. "You're fucking talking nonsense. Zhou Dewang, you still have the face to come here?" I held him back. "Dazhuang, let them test." The law enforcement officers randomly took samples from the shrimp we brought, put them into the test solution, and dipped the test strip in. After a few seconds, 2 red lines slowly appeared. Uncle burst out laughing. "See? Drug residue positive. I told you his saline alkali wastewater can't produce good stuff." Shen Wanking's face changed. Wang Mazi blew a smoke ring at the door. "Manager Shen, the county's aquatic circle is so small. Everyone knows. Zhou Qingyi was kicked out by his uncle. If you cooperate with this kind of person, you'll ruin your own reputation." The officer said, "Seized for now." I didn't move throughout the process. I stared at the test strip, then slowly moved my gaze to the sampling bottle. There was a red scratch on the bottle cap, very thin, like a paint line scraped by a nail. I know this mark. On the medicine bottles for my uncle's pond, every cap was marked with red paint. To prevent moisture and confusion, he said. I worked at his pond for 3 years. Every day mixing medicine. That red paint mark. I could recognize it blindfolded. Come on, I looked up and stared at my uncle. "Did you forget?" "Forget what?" I said, "I grew up in your pond since childhood." The smile on his face was like a string suddenly cut. His eyes darted sideways, then forced back. "Don't slander me. The test result is right here. There's no use denying it." I turned to the officer and said, "I request a resealing and tripartite sampling. You take one, Manager Shen takes one, and I take one with full video. Send to the provincial testing center." Wang Mazi threw the cigarette on the ground, saying, "Why waste words with him?" Positive test and still wants to overturn? Shen Wanking looked at me for 2 seconds. Step forward before the official results come out. I'll keep these shrimp in the live water tank first. No one is allowed to touch them. Cousin's face turned ugly. Manager Shen, you're covering up. Shen Wanking directly interrupts him and says to the law enforcement officers, if it's a false test, will your bureau take responsibility? The officers hesitated and exchanged glances, finally nodded and agreed to reseal the samples. I'll record the whole sampling process on my phone. Every time I take a tube, I'll report the time, number, and sampler, seal the sample bag with tape. 3 parties sign, 3 copies. Cousin stands nearby, with his hands behind his back, his knuckles white from gripping. Wang Mazi leans in and whispers something to him. His face got even worse. Before leaving, he lowered his voice and said to me, "You're lucky this time, but luck always runs out." I said, "It's not about luck. The red paint on your cousin's bottle cap, your shrimp pond warehouse. Every bottle of medicine has it. Do you dare let me take people to check?" His pupils contracted and he turned to leave. Wang Mazi followed, cursing under his breath. 3 days later, 2 reports arrived in the city, one after another. The test results from County 04 showed unqualified. Cousin holds that report, stands at the seafood market entrance. A crowd gathers around. Wang Mazi called people in advance and also brought a loudspeaker. In the market, broadcasting in a loop, Zhou Qinghei's saline alkali land toxic shrimp are being investigated. Uncle looked smug. Zhou Qinghei is going to smash the pond. The whole county is watching. Don't you dare. In my hand, I'm holding the just-opened express envelope. The seal of the provincial testing center is still intact. I open the envelope and pull out the report. From the first line to the last line, I smile. When my uncle sees me smile, his smugness freezes. "What are you smiling at?" I turn the provincial inspection report over and hold it up in front of everyone. All indicators meet national standards. No drug residues detected. Protein content is 20% higher than ordinary South American white shrimp. The sweet amino acid content is significantly higher than similar products. 2 reports on the same batch of shrimp. One says toxic, the other says premium. The crowd erupts. Someone shouts, "So someone from the county testing center, come out and explain." Someone takes out their phone to photograph the report. Wang Mazi snatches the county's report, turns it over and reads it twice. His face changes color. "De Wang, didn't you say it was foolproof?" My uncle's face twitches. "Shut up!" My phone rings. I say, "Earned from selling shrimp." She doesn't ask further, only says, "Your dad told me to tell you." "He believes in you?" I hang up. I look at the water surface. Every grievance has its culprit, every debt its debtor. My father's life. This pond has helped me earn back. Next, what needs to be repaid? One by one. I get up before dawn. Crouching by the inlet, I tested the water quality. The water wasn't hot, had no strange smell, and the color didn't turn murky, and remained stable. These shrimp, from stocking to now, have survived the most dangerous half-month, grew to over 6 centimeters, and feed aggressively. Chao Dazhuang came out of the shed, yawning, and handed me a steamed bun. "You didn't sleep again last night?" I slept 3 hours. He didn't respond and took a bite of the bun. Village Party Secretary Zhao called yesterday, saying the county has included your saline alkali land farming into the Rural Revitalization Demonstration Project, and provincial TV will come for an interview. I said, let Secretary Zhao take the spotlight for me, because the pond can't be left unattended. Zhao Dazhuang choked on a bite of bun. "You won't even go to provincial TV?" I didn't reply, tore the bun and took a bite. Grandpa's notes still have a page I haven't fully understood, which is about the method of fattening shrimp in saline alkali land in the later stage. Regular ponds rely on adding feed, but saline alkali land needs to adjust water to stimulate shrimp. If the water is adjusted right, the shrimp's sweetness can be raised to a higher level. Zhao Dazhuang crouched nearby, eating a bun, and asked indistinctly, "What if it's not adjusted right?" I said, "If it's wrong, the whole pond will turn over, just like the first time." He slowed down his chewing. "Then take it easy," I said. "I can't take it easy." Shen Wanking called yesterday. He said the demand from high-end restaurants in the city has doubled, and asked how much I can supply. I said I can supply 8,000 jin in the second batch. She directly transferred 100,000 as deposit. On the day the 100,000 arrived, Zhao Dazhuang stared at his phone for a minute without saying a word. "I've never seen so much money in my life, bro. Are we dreaming? 8,000 jin is no small amount. The pond can't sustain that yield. We need to expand the pond again." I went to the village head and contracted another 30 mu of the saline alkali land adjacent to the original 20. This time, the village head didn't try to talk me out of it. When signing the contract, he said, "Kid, you've really inherited your grandfather's skills." Secretary Zhao said, "If you can revitalize the hundreds of mu of saline alkali land in the village, He will be your project recommender. The news reached Zhou Duang's ears, faster than I could have spread it myself. On the third day of digging the new pond, Wang Mazi came with his men. They weren't here to watch the fun, but to block the road. 3 vans were parked across the village road, blocking the dirt path to the pond entrance completely. Each van held 3 or 4 people. Some were holding baseball bats. Wang Mazi was leaning against the car door, eating sunflower seeds. When he saw me coming, he grinned. "Qinghe, I heard you want to expand the pond." I said, "Move aside." He waved his hand and said, "Don't rush, let's talk." He spat the sunflower seed shells on the ground. "You raise shrimp in the village, using the village's water. I paid to build this road, so you have to pay a toll to pass." Zhao Dazhuang came running from the pond, his eyes wide at the sight. "Are you fucking robbing me?" Behind Wang Mazi, a bald guy stepped forward, planting his baseball bat on the ground. "Who the hell are you cussing at?" Wang Mazi waved his hand, staring at me. "Not much. 1 mu of pond, pay me 3,000 a year. 50 mu, 150,000 a year." I said, "What if I don't pay?" Wang Mazi smiled, pulling out some sunflower seeds from his pocket. "Then you won't ship a single pound of shrimp out. County ice factory, trucks, packaging. Go ask around. Who dares to take your order? You got lucky with that provincial thing last time. But next time, who knows?" Zhao Dazhuang tightened his grip on the shovel handle. I held his wrist. Someone behind me spoke up. Secretary Zhao arrived without us knowing, followed by a middle-aged man in a police uniform. Secretary Zhao walked up to Wang Mazi. "Wang Mazi, this village road was built last year with funds from the Fiscal Award Program for Village Projects. The money came from the government, and the villagers voted on it. You didn't pay a single cent." Wang Mazi's pockmarked face tightened. Secretary Zhao pointed to the cop beside him. "This is Captain Ma from the town police station. Blocking the road. Is suspected of disrupting production and business order. Captain Ma has something to say. Don't look at me, I'll get straight to the point. I've established the Qinghe Saltfield White Shrimp Cooperative. Members get free shrimp seedlings, free technical training, unified testing and unified brand, unified sales. Qualified white shrimp will be bought back at 30% above market price. Year-end dividends based on shares." The room was silent for 2 seconds, then exploded. 30% higher? Are you crazy? What if we can't farm them? Zhu Dewang has been doing this for years, and he wouldn't dare do this. After they finish arguing, I plug the USB drive into the village committee's beat-up old computer. The projector lights up. On it are photos of 5 supply contracts. All buyers are high-end restaurants in the provincial capital. Go get wheat bran and soybean meal. Old Liu takes a few members, clears an open space behind the warehouse, and mixes ingredients with bacteria to pile for fermentation. For the first 2 days, Zhao Dazhuang was worried. Came to check 8 times a day. On the 3rd day, the fermentation pile started steaming, and a sweet and sour fermentation smell spread everywhere. Old Liu leaned close to the pile and smelled it carefully. "This smell reminds me of the bran liquor I used to brew at home. In the blink of an eye, it's the 7th day. Everyone prepares to test feed in the shrimp pond. The feed is scattered into the pond, and schools of green shrimp quickly gather and compete for food. Their feeding speed is actually faster than with ordinary commercial feed. Zhao Dazhuang crouches by the pond, holding his breath, not daring to make a sound. 2 hours later, I throw another handful of feed into the pond. The shrimp in the pond still gather and compete fiercely without any decrease. Zhao Dazhuang tensed his body and sat down heavily on the pond bank. "Bro, this matter of the homemade fermented feed is completely successful." A month later, the comparison results of the shrimp pond farming were officially released. The test pond with fermented feed had freshwater shrimp with average body length 1 centimeter larger, carapace color brighter, and intestines full and particularly healthy. Old Liu picked up a shrimp and opened its gills and examined carefully. How strange. The shrimp's intestines are stronger than those fed with concentrated feed. I will take the fermented feed formula and organize it into a standardized operating procedure within the entire farming cooperative and fully promote its use. Factory manager Ma of the feed mill barely lasted 2 months before he proactively called. "Qinghe, I was confused before. I shouldn't have colluded to block your sales channels. Can we resume cooperation? The feed price is negotiable. No need to cooperate anymore. I already have self-made feed here." Factory manager Ma on the other end of the phone instantly became anxious and uneasy. "How long can your folk recipe last? What if something goes wrong? If any problem really occurs, I will bear it all myself." Zhao Dazhuang heard clearly from the side and laughed, pounding the table. You haven't seen factory manager Ma in his former arrogant and now begging manner. He won't give up just like that. He's still secretly supplying feed to Zhou Dewang. Those ponds of Zhou Dewang's shrimp will sooner or later have a farming accident. 2 months later, the provincial government launched the 3rd round. Aquaculture spot check. Zhou Dewang's shrimp pond. found drug residues exceeding standards, was given the maximum penalty by officials, aquaculture license revoked, banned from aquaculture for 5 years. The involved feed factory was implicated. Under official investigation, factory manager Ma's factory ordered to suspend operations for 3 months. On the day the punishment news came, Zhao Dazhuang stood by the fermented feed pile, looking at the steaming wheat bran pile, full of emotions. Bro, what your grandpa left is not notes but a lifeline. 1 month later, the first batch of white shrimp successfully went to market. The entire batch of white shrimp all successfully passed provincial professional tests. The protein and sweetness, amino acid indicators are no different from the main pond. Shen Wangqing came to the village specially to inspect the breeding base on site. Boss Joe, your aquaculture operation is getting bigger and bigger. Don't you plan to find a reliable partner to develop together? I now run a cooperative and don't lack working capital. I naturally know you don't lack working capital. The cooperation I'm talking about refers to Fresh Food Sales Channel Resources. After speaking, she reached out and handed me an exquisite paper business card. The card reads, Provincial Capital Fresh Supply Chain, Association Secretary General Shen Wangqing. I looked up at her. She gently blinked. The previous identity as procurement head was just a temporary cover. Now the Association Secretary General is my true identity. Zhou Qinghe, I am not. Just want to source your white shrimp supply. I want to push your eco-friendly white shrimp into the provincial market layout. Zhao Dazhuang stood aside, stunned, his expression full of surprise. Sis, why didn't you reveal your true identity earlier? If I had revealed my true identity earlier, you might not have believed me. She turned to look at me and asked calmly if I was willing to cooperate. I extended my right hand forward, making a gesture of handshake cooperation. Thus, the cooperation was reached. The two parties finalized the Fresh Food Channel cooperation. Technician Lee also made a special trip to the village cooperative site. He brought a plaque of the Provincial Academy of Agricultural Sciences Ecological Breeding Demonstration Base. The plaque was hung at the entrance of the cooperative, in the most conspicuous position. Secretary Zhao stood beside the plaque, accepting an interview from the provincial TV station reporter. This saline alkaline wasteland used to be barren, so desolate that even weeds struggled to grow. Zhou Qinghe continued the ancestral ecological breeding methods, diligently researching and practicing, at the same time cooperating with the professional science and technology guidance of the Provincial Academy of Agricultural Sciences. He turned the once neglected saline alkaline wasteland into a treasure trove for wealth. This is a real benchmark on our road to rural revitalization. But just as everyone was celebrating, a sudden change occurred inside Yue Hailu. Shen Wangqing specifically called, her tone clearly suppressing anger. Assistant manager Qin resolutely disagrees with the restaurant, fully adopting our white shrimp. His reason was simple and straightforward, very realistic and safe. The supply capacity of county retail farmers has instability risks. If supply is interrupted midway, it will directly damage Yue Hailu's brand reputation. Vice President Qin, in charge of kitchen procurement, has worked at the restaurant for 15 years. With deep seniority, his words carry great weight, and no one underestimates him. He even specially brought a returnee aquaculture PhD to re-inspect the pond. The next day, 2 cars slowly stopped at the gate of the cooperative. Shen Wangqing was the first to step down from the first car. She turned and secretly gave Zhou Qinghe a warning look. Vice President Qin, dressed in a suit and leather shoes, wore a polite smile on his face, but his eyes were full of criticism for the rural farming base. Dr. Lin beside him, in his early 30s, gentle and scholarly, carried a silver briefcase filled with imported testing instruments. He opened the case, and sensors, probes, test kits were neatly arranged in a row. Boss Joe, I don't mean to distrust your farming base, but Yue Hailu is a high-end restaurant and values quality and safety even more. Wangqing is young and full of drive, so we old folks have to help her keep things in check. Shen Wangqing stood quietly aside, speechless, with her chin slightly tucked. I have known her for a long time and could tell at a glance that she was suppressing her anger. Dr. Lin, without much formality, crouched by the pond and immediately began testing. First, he repeatedly measured the dissolved oxygen level, then compared the reagent bottle colors. Vice President Qin stood by, waiting and gradually looking impatient. Xiaolin, what's the test result? Hurry up and report it to me. Dr. Lin hesitated briefly, then told the truth. Here are the test data. Oxygen levels are abundant in the water. No harmful toxins from rotting shrimp. The water is clear and bright. Underwater visibility reaches half a meter. Beneficial bacteria in the water dominate absolutely. Harmful bacteria are extremely scarce. Pathogenic Vibrio is strictly controlled to within 1,000th. Every time Dr. Lin reported a number, Deputy Chin's brows tightened a bit. The bacterial balance of these shrimp ponds is the best outdoor pond data I've ever seen. Even the lab's recirculating water system can hardly achieve such stability. Deputy Chin's face, the smile he forced, completely disappeared. I stood by from start to finish, silent and not saying a word. Shen Wangqing, at the right moment, spoke in a calm and unhurried tone. Deputy Chin, all the test data you have seen with your own eyes. Zhou Qinghe is the Provincial Agricultural Academy's designated ecological breeding demonstration base, and also the county's key rural revitalization benchmark project. The breeding data and test reports are all publicly available and verifiable. For Qinghe, the long-term supply agreement can be officially signed. Deputy Chin was silent for a moment, then turned to look at Zhou Qinghe beside him. Boss Zhou, this water quality control. Technology, are you willing to cooperate externally? My tone was calm, my attitude firm. I directly refused to sell the technology. He was stunned for a moment, saying, I just want to understand the principle. I said no. I turned around and walked straight ahead. Dr. Lin caught up from behind and handed something out. Ming Pian wanted to ask about the method for bacterial culture expansion. He worked in the lab for 3 years, but couldn't achieve such stability. He couldn't help but speak up. Asking Zhou Qinghe how he managed to do it, I glanced at him and slowly told him the reason. Your lab temperature is constant, and the salinity is premixed. In my pond, morning and evening, the temperature difference is 3 degrees, and alkalinity jumps when wind blows. In the lab, you cultivate only pure bacterial strains, but in my shrimp pond, I cultivate a complete ecosystem. He stood there and pondered for a long time. Finally, he sincerely said it, I'm totally convinced. Shen Wangqing later called me personally. After returning, Vice President Chin stopped the white shrimp from other suppliers, and in the entire restaurant supply chain, he only kept me. I asked back, did you secretly do all this? I didn't deliberately manipulate. The data made the decision for him. After a brief pause, she softly added one more thing. But one thing, you owe me a favor. The Dr. Lin brought by Vice President Chin, I deliberately did not stop him. I knew in my heart that he couldn't detect any problems. The second batch of white shrimp officially left the pond. On that early morning, I arrived at the pond by 4 a.m. early in the morning. The pond aerator was turned off half an hour in advance. The water surface was very calm, and the moonlight on the horizon had not faded. Zhao Dazhuang, with 6 helpers, began to set the fishing net. The first large fishing net was slowly pulled up from the water. The entire pond instantly fell into a full 5 seconds of silence. The white shrimp in the net were crystal clear and of excellent quality. Their shells were so thin, it seemed they had never grown. The whiskers were intact, each shrimp jumping vigorously in the net. The size of the shrimp compared to the first batch was more uniform. The largest white shrimp among them was as long as a palm. Zhao Dazhuang crouched down, picked up a shrimp and examined it under the headlight. Qinghe, look at this shell. Why is it as transparent as glass? I softly explained, it was all because the water was clean enough. In ordinary shrimp ponds, there is always a fishy smell. That fishy smell comes from decomposing leftover feed and shrimp waste. In my pond, I used the old method. From my grandfather's notes to culture the water in the pond was clean, with no odor at all. Shrimp grown in clean water have thin shells, firm meat, and a sweeter taste. Among the helpers was an experienced old hand who had been in aquaculture for 20 years. He picked up a shrimp, examined it carefully for a moment, then gently put it back. He rubbed his hands together, full of genuine admiration. I've been raising shrimp for 20 years, and I've never seen such good quality. Mr. Zhou, these shrimp can beat any competitors on the market. That day, the pond totaled 8,200 jin of white shrimp. A full truckload of white shrimp was neatly loaded into the refrigerated truck. I personally followed the refrigerated truck all the way to the provincial capital to deliver. Shen Wangqing was already in the provincial capital, waiting in the kitchen of Yue High Building. She arranged for chefs to immediately draw 3 boxes of live white shrimp. All 3 boxes of white shrimp were cooked using the poaching method. In the kitchen, standing were 7 or 8 people waiting to taste, including chefs, waitstaff, and the restaurant manager. Among them was a middle-aged man wearing gold-rimmed glasses. Only later did we learn that he was the big boss of Yue High Building. The 3 boxes of shrimp were taken from the front, middle, and rear sections of the pond mouth. After poaching, all samples passed the test. The shrimp meat was firm and springy, and the roe was full with no off flavors. The big boss ate the first shrimp and remained silent. Then he picked up his chopsticks and took a second one to taste. After eating, he slowly put down his chopsticks with a determined look. He said solemnly to Shen Wanking his decision. From now on, Yuehai Building's white shrimp will only be supplied by this one farm. All other suppliers, white shrimp will be stopped. Shen Wanking that very day re-signed the supply contract with me. The supply price rose from 98 yen per jin to 120. We agreed to lock the price for the year and prepay 30% of the payment as deposit. Shen Wanking also actively introduced me to expand cooperation channels. She recommended my white shrimp supply to 4 high-end restaurants in the provincial capital. In just 1 week, I signed 5 direct supply contracts. Xiao Dezhuang took a calculator and carefully calculated the annual revenue. The 5 restaurants supply about 20,000 jin of white shrimp per year. At 120 yuan per jin, the profit is very tempting. He was halfway through the calculation when he put down the calculator and said bluntly that if he continued, he wouldn't be able to sleep tonight. The news of the partnership reached the county town, and Wang Mazi's side was completely panicked. The wholesalers who previously ganged up to boycott me all took the initiative to contact me. Some forced smiles to get close, deliberately trying to build relationships. Others, even on the phone, directly called me Brother Qinghe. The ice factory owner personally made a special trip and came to the aquaculture cooperative's doorstep, carrying 2 cartons of cigarettes in hand, his face full of fawning smiles. Qinghe, I was wrong before. Please be magnanimous and forgive me. Faced with everyone's overtures, I did not accept any of them. Xiao Dezhuang asked puzzledly why I didn't sell to them. I sat on the pond bank, sipping the tea in my hand slowly. Back then, they were not truly unwilling to buy my shrimp. At that time, deep down, they simply didn't dare to take over. Now, they also don't truly want to buy my shrimp. They simply want the high-quality supply I have. These 2 mindsets are fundamentally completely different things. Doing business with such fence-sitters, sooner or later you'll get stabbed in the back. Wang Mazi's side didn't stop their sneaky moves. One night, a week before, the second batch of shrimp was harvested from the cooperative. At 2 a.m. sharp, the entire village was deep in sound sleep. The water quality monitor on my phone suddenly went off urgently. The piercing buzzer instantly woke me from deep sleep. The water quality on the monitor is 1.49. The data figures keep jumping. I hurriedly pulled on my pants and rushed outside. At Dezhuang No. 1 Pond, a sudden emergency occurred. Turn on all aerators and backup power supply. By the time I hurriedly arrived at the pond, the water surface was already turning white. Some white shrimp couldn't withstand the ammonia-nitrogen shock and floated up. The shrimp's gill covers were open on the water, and they swam very feebly. The air was filled with a very pungent and strange smell. It wasn't the normal pond fishy smell, but a bitter chemical smell. Xiao Dezhuang, shirtless, ran over carrying an emergency aerator pump. Bro, at the water inlet, there are obvious unfamiliar footprints. I calmly said, first do our best to save the shrimp and call the police immediately. Xiao Dezhuang was stunned for a moment, then immediately pulled out his phone and dialed 110. I immediately turned on the backup generator to start the power supply equipment. All 6 aerators started running at full power. I also sent someone to the warehouse to fetch the antidote and zeolite powder. Along the water inlet, they poured the chemicals downstream in sequence. Xiao Dezhuang, along with 3 workers, used buckets to pour the material into the pond. Everyone kept busy, and the work lasted a full 2 hours. The white foam floating on the water slowly disappeared and faded away. Some of the white shrimp that had turned belly up and damaged partially resumed swimming. During the interval when everyone was pouring and rescuing, a police car hurriedly arrived at the pond. Captain Ma brought the police officers and carefully inspected the water inlet with flashlights. I said, I know. She paused for 2 seconds. He's your own cousin. I said, yes. She asked if I planned to help him. I said I'd helped him enough. She said one more thing. The Provincial Academy of Agricultural Sciences wrote the cooperative's saline alkali ecological aquaculture model into the annual typical case. At next month's provincial promotion meeting, you and Technician Li will give an experience report together. I said, let Xiao Dezhuang go. She laughed. It's him again. After hanging up, I walked out of the lab. The cooperative's shrimp ponds stretched in patches, aerators churning white waves, automatic feeding lines gliding steadily along the pond ridges. Over a dozen new members were learning water quality testing by the ponds. Old Liu was holding test kits, teaching one by one. If anyone slacked off on measuring pH, he would chase and curse them along the ridge. Xiao Dezhuang ran over from the warehouse, holding a list in his hand. Another order from the provincial capital, this time from 3 private cuisine restaurants I said no need to report, just arrange shipment. All right. He ran 2 steps, then turned back. The village director called. The county is holding an awards ceremony tomorrow. They want you to speak. Rural Revitalization Advanced Individual Awards. I said I'm not going. Zhao Dazhuang was stunned. Why? I said the shrimp ponds can't be left unattended. He shoved the list in his pocket and caught up. Bro, tell me the truth. Do you just not want to give those formal speeches on stage? I didn't deny it. Go ahead. He scratched his head. My legs were shaking when I went on stage. I said, your voice was louder than anyone else on payday. He scratched his head and left. Zhao Dazhuang spoke on behalf of the cooperative on stage. He wore a newly bought shirt. The buttons were done up wrong. Before going on stage, he was grabbed by old Liu and rebuttoned. He stood in front of the microphone for a long time. When he opened his mouth, he said, our cooperative's shrimp is the best in the whole province. The audience burst into laughter. He ignored it and continued. He said that no one wanted the saline alkali land before. He mentioned Zhou Qinghe and his grandfather's notes. He talked about the cooperative dividends, with cash piling up on the village committee table. He rolled up his shirt sleeve at the end, revealing his sun-tanned black arm. Our village used to be poor, but now it's not poor. No one in the audience was laughing anymore. The county leaders led the applause. On the night of the commendation meeting, I came back from the pond. I saw the crew cut guy on the village road. He wore a wrinkled work suit, carrying a plastic bag in his hand. His posture was completely different from before. He used to stand with his hands on his hips and head up. Now his shoulders drooped, huddled under the streetlight. Shu Qinghe. Zhao Dazhuang saw him first. His face fell immediately. What are you here for? He said, I'm here to find Qinghe. Zhao Dazhuang stepped forward. How the hell did you scold him at the shrimp pond back then? How dare you show up? Get lost. I called out to him. Dazhuang. What's up? The crew cut guy walked over. He put the plastic bag on the ground. Inside were 2 bottles of liquor, the labels all scuffed. He stood with his head down for half a minute. I want to join your team. Zhao Dazhuang sneered beside him. Weren't you following? Should they want to block us? Now that your master is down, you think of us? I said nothing. The crew cut guy lifted his head. The way he looked at me was different from before. Before, it was all disdain. Now it's only guilt. I know I was a jerk before. I ganged up with Zhou Dawang to mess with you, called you a wage earner, blocked your path, and laughed at you. I did all these things, and I own up to it. Zhou Dawang's business collapsed. I haven't had work for 2 months. 5 mouths at home, young and old, need feeding. If you don't take me in, I won't complain. I just came to ask. I looked at the 2 bottles on the ground. You said back then that giving me 20,000 was a favor to me. Remember? His face turned bright red. I remember, I said. Then why can't I just tell you to get lost? His lips moved, but no words came out. He stood there for a full 10 seconds. He bent down to pick up the 2 bottles. His hands were trembling. I turned and walked a few steps, then stopped. Want to join? Fine. First, go learn water quality testing from old Liu. Learn it or don't bother. He was stunned. You're letting me join? I walked away. Zhao Dazhuang followed behind, taking a dozen steps. I just started to speak. Did you really take him in? I said yes. He asked, didn't he curse you badly back then? I said his skills aren't bad. During those years with Zhou Dawang, he handled all the pond matters. He just followed the wrong person. Zhao Dazhuang thought for a moment and nodded. That's true about him. Aside from his foul mouth, he's really efficient at work. The aerator was still thumping, just like that night, 1 or 2 years ago. But back then, the surface was covered with dead white shrimp fry. Now, the pond is full of live creatures below. Back then, I knelt in the mud, fishing for dead shrimp fry. Now he's squatting in the mud crying. I walked over and grabbed his arm and pulled him to his feet. He had lost weight. His arms were skinny. I took the envelope. When my dad had surgery, you gave me 30,000. I'll talk to my dad about the rest. He was stunned. Your dad, would he see me? I said the cooperative needs to expand by another 100 mu and needs an experienced pond manager. But there's a condition. You cannot touch the feed, or the medicine, nor handle testing and sampling. These are handled by dedicated staff. You only need to manage daily pond operations and water intake control. Each batch of shrimp must pass third-party testing before harvest, and only then can you get the year-end bonus. Old Liu is your direct superior, and if he thinks you're not good enough, he can let you go at any time. He stood on the pond ridge, listened to all the conditions, his face wet, lips trembling for a long time. Finally, he squeezed out a sentence. I'm not a person. You shouldn't have given me this chance. I had already walked away 2 steps, stopped, and didn't look back. This pond chief position isn't given for free. Your previous debts will be deducted from dividends each year. After it's fully deducted, he stood frozen on the pond bank. His lips twitched for a long time, finally squeezing out 3 words. Why? I had already walked far away. I walked to the office building entrance. Zhao Dazhuang poked his head out of the window, saw a figure still standing on the distant pond bank, and asked, "Who is that?" I said, "Zhou Dawang," and he almost jumped out of the window. "What's he here for? Trying to cause trouble again?" I said, "To repay the debt." "Repay the debt you accepted?" I said. "I did." "Then what's your plan?" I pushed the door and entered the building, placing the envelope on the table. "The new pond is short-handed, let him try it out." Zhao Dazhuang got anxious. "You don't mean to make him the pond chief, do you? Bro, you're crazy." I said the contract states that he can't touch the feed and drugs, and the harvest must pass third-party testing. Old Liu will handle his dividends to deduct past debts. 1 year probation, if not good, he's out any time. Zhao Dazhuang opened his mouth, then slapped the table and said, "Fine, you have the final say, but let's put it on record. If he dares to cause trouble again, I'll be the first to kick him into the shrimp pond." Early the next morning, Zhou Dawang stood at the cooperative entrance wearing clean work clothes and had his hair cut, but he still stood there with his shoulders hunched. Old Liu saw him, his face longer than Zhao. Dazhuang's then turned into the testing room. Some other members pretended not to see him, others directly walked around. Someone whispered, "How does he have the face to come?" Zhou Dawang stood at the entrance without moving. The work clothes were new, but he wore them as if borrowed. From my office window I looked down, and took a glance but did not go down. Old Liu was in the testing room for about 10 minutes, then came out with a test kit and slammed it down in front of Zhou Dawang. "If you want to be a pond manager, first learn water quality testing. If you can't learn it, don't blame me for not giving face. I'm a vengeful person. The things you did before, I remember them all, but Qinghe said to give you a chance, so I'll give you one. There is no second chance, and you remember, every net of shrimp you catch, I will inspect. As long as it's handled by you. If the pond drug residues aren't passed or the quality isn't up to standard, I will at any time make you pack up and leave." Zhu Dawang took the test kit, his hands trembling. He said in a hoarse voice, "Thanks." Old Liu didn't respond and turned to leave. After walking 2 steps, he turned back and said, "Before 3 p.m., test all 3 items, pH, ammonia nitrogen, and dissolved oxygen. If you miss one, pack up and leave." In March, the new pond was dug. In April, fry were stocked. In May, the first batch of shrimp was harvested. The 30 mu new pond under Zhou Dawang's charge had all testing indicators qualified. Old Liu sampled 3 nets and added another net sent to a third-party test. Every net of shrimp was as perfect as a sample. The shrimp were uniform in size, vigorous, with thin shells and firm flesh. The third-party test report came back, with all indicators passed. Old Liu stood on the pond ridge and read the report twice. After reading, he clipped the report into his notebook, without a word. On the day of acceptance inspection, Old Liu walked down from the ridge and passed by, me dropping a line, "You really know how to raise shrimp. You've learned even more than what your grandpa taught. This season will be fine." With that, he left. Zhou Dawang stood by the pond, still holding the water quality test kit. I walked over. He turned around and saw me, letting out an involuntary yell. I didn't answer, just stood there for a while. I said the shrimp was good. His eyes got red instantly, and he quickly lowered his head. He fumbled with the test kit for ages, his hands shaking so much he couldn't hold the reagent bottle. The day the cooperative's sign went up, many people came, county officials, provincial reporters, Shen Wanking's supply chain team, technician Li from the Agricultural Academy, and farmers from 3 neighboring towns. The village committee yard was packed with cars. The village head wore a new shirt, its top button fastened, greeting everyone with a hoarse voice. Secretary Zhao stood by the plaque, talking to the county leader about how the saline alkali land had turned from wasteland into treasure. I didn't stay long. Zhao Daqiang took over, hosting. He's loud and naturally gets people hyped. He grabbed a reporter and went on about the cooperative. So excited he rolled up his sleeves to show off his tan lines. When Shen Wanking found me, I was standing alone by the farthest pond. She came up and said, "Aren't you coming to the ceremony? The county officials are looking for you." The model worker. I said I was checking the water. She looked where I was looking. Is checking water more important than the ceremony? I squatted down, dipped my finger in the water and tasted it. pH 8.1. It's hot lately. We need to run an extra aerator at night. She waited by my side for a moment, then suddenly changed the subject. "Your grandfather's notebook. Can you let me see a page?" I take it out from my bosom and hand it to her. She turns to the first page and reads aloud. "Saline alkali land is not waste. It's a paradise for shrimp." She closed the notebook and returned it to me. Your grandfather was a wise man. If he were still here, to see this pond now, what would he say? I said he probably wouldn't say anything, just squat on the pond bank and smile. The plaque unveiling ceremony finally happened anyway. The village chief pulled me onto the stage. Zhao Dezhuang and Old Liu had already hung the plaque. When the red silk was pulled down, firecrackers burst into a roar. The area under the stage was packed with a sea of people. I said into the microphone, "Saline Alkali Land is not waste, and people's hearts are not lost." At night, sitting in the office, I flipped through Grandpa's notebook to the last page. The handwriting was already blurred from where. Saline Alkali Land can raise good shrimp. A heart that is rotted may still be reformed. I closed the notebook and gently turned off the light. Outside the window, moonlight quietly spilled over the rows of shrimp ponds. Occasionally, fine splashes rose between the pond banks. In the distance from the warehouse came the sound of Dazhuang counting goods. The sound, carried by the night wind, was somewhat muffled. Later, Dazhuang once asked me a question. Who was Grandpa's sentence written for? I said, at first I thought it was for the Saline Alkali Land. Later I thought it was about people's hearts. And finally, I understood he was writing about choice. I leaned back in my chair and slowly closed my eyes. That year, I fought my way back from the brink of death and regained my own life. Those people and things that should have sunk long ago, finally, slowly came back to life at the bottom of this pond. Early the next morning, at daybreak, I went to the pond entrance. The mist hasn't lifted. The water's surface is shrouded in a thin light veil. The aerator slowly churns, shattering the morning light on the pond. Zhou Dewang was already waiting by the new pond he was responsible for. He crouched at the water inlet, seriously measuring with a water quality test kit. His movements slow but filled with unprecedented focus. Dewdrops clung to his forehead, his gray temples starkly visible. He heard footsteps, turned, and saw me hastily standing up. Qinghe, so early? His voice was hoarse, tinged with nervousness. Nodded, walked to the pond's edge, and looked at the clear, transparent water. How's the water quality? I asked casually, softly. He quickly picked up the logbook and handed it to me with both hands. pH 8.0, ammonia nitrogen 0.1, dissolved oxygen 6. 5 data points are all within normal range, all up to standard. His tone hid nervousness, like a student waiting for homework inspection. I flipped through the logbook. The handwriting was neat, the data clear, much more careful than when he used to farm shrimp himself. Not bad. I gave a simple evaluation. His eyes instantly lit up. The corners of his mouth twitched slightly, as if wanting to say something, but finally he squeezed out a sincere sentence. I'll work hard. I won't let down this chance you gave me. I didn't say more and turned to walk towards the main pond. Behind me, he crouched down again to continue seriously testing the water. His back was thin, but showed a firm determination to live a stable life. The wind gently brushed the pond surface, carrying the smell of water and grass. Far away, members of the cooperative were carrying tools and heading to their respective ponds. They chatted and laughed, their faces full of stable and secure smiles. Old Liu stood on the pond bank, loudly instructing the new members, his voice loud and vigorous, showing the rigor of an old shrimp farmer. Dazhuang, riding a three-wheeler loaded with feed, waved at me from afar. Brother, we're harvesting the second batch today. I've arranged everything. I waved back at him, feeling calm and at ease inside. This once barren, despised saline alkali land has now become a treasure trove, raising province-famous saltfield white shrimp. And those hearts that were once selfish, greedy, and evil have now found the courage to turn back, learning to live a steady life. Grandpa was right. Saline alkali land is never useless, and hearts are never beyond redemption once they go bad. As long as you're willing to work hard, be steady, and turn back, anything is possible. Wasteland can yield gold, and hearts can turn to good, and the road ahead will eventually have light. I stood on the pond bank, looking at the endless stretch of shrimp ponds, at the busy members, at the slowly rising morning sun. Facing the morning light, I slowly showed a relieved smile. This path was full of thorns, so difficult that I almost wanted to give up many times. But I gritted my teeth, and step by step, I finally made it through. The hardships I endured, the suffering I faced, the grievances I swallowed, all turned into solid foundation beneath my feet, carrying me forward and also carrying everyone around me towards a stable and good life. For the rest of my life, I don't crave great wealth, only yearn for peace year after year, only wish for fat shrimp in the pond, and peace for those around me. When hearts turn to good, everything goes smoothly.